All right. So, welcome back to the Game Link podcast. I'm Lebby, and this is my friend Elmer.
Howdy, guys.
If you haven't heard of the podcast before, what we do is we talk about video game movies. So, movies based off video games. Last week we did Silent Hill, which was a lot of fun. And this week we're doing Street Fighter from 1994, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme.
You gotta like it. Our inaugural episode, we talk about a film that was made by an artistic French, European director. In this one, we talk about a European actor who certainly did a lot of coke in actual voyeuristic and European theaters. So, makes sense.
Yeah, it was an experience watching this movie, but we'll get into that soon. First, what did you do this week, Barry?
This week, Levy, about pretty much all I did this week, for the most part, is I worked in my house kind of thing, and then last night, me and the missus, we went out on a little date and went and saw the new Ghostbusters movie.
Oh, I've heard that people had higher expectations for this one. How was it?
That kind of breaks my heart in a way, because, at this point, how can you have higher expectations for a series that's pretty much been dead since 1989?
Well, compared to the last one, I didn't hear as much, like, outlash, I guess.
Which is weird to hear because, if anything, in tone, the last one was closer to the original Ghostbusters than this one was. But at the same time, you know, after seeing the movie, I rewatched the original Ghostbusters last night. And I gotta say, the original Ghostbusters is literally just some of the best comedians of the era finding themselves in like a situational comedy of suddenly it's like, oh, would you look at that? Harold Ramis from Stripes and Dan Aykroyd from Blues Brothers and Bill Murray from Caddyshack. They're fighting ghosts as scientists, and they're a bunch of schlubby morons who have no idea what they're doing. It's like, and that somehow became like a comedy classic that influenced like a generation. So that's why it was a little weird last night. Don't get me wrong, I grew up on Ghostbusters, but that was kind of how I reappraised it watching it last night. But no, seeing Ghostbusters Afterlife, it's a fitting tribute, and it's fun, and it has its moments, but at the same time, the kids in my theater, they were laughing and they were screaming at all the right moments, and that's what made me go, you know what? This is what this stands for. This is gonna be their Ghostbusters more so than anything else.
So it was good.
It was watchable.
Okay.
I was also pretty drunk during the movie.
Oh, that's a given.
Yeah.
But yeah. Let's see. What did I do? I just worked my butt off. Did I play anything? Did I do anything? Man, it was just really a boring week for me.
Well, you did tell me that you're finally watching Bebop on your server of choice, whatever the hell you call it. So no, yeah, you told me that you're finally watching Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah, every night, every night I watch an episode of Cowboy Bebop with my dog.
And then I find out when I told him, oh yeah, we're going through the new series as well, and he turns and looks at me and goes, new series? What?
Yeah, I didn't know about the live action series out right now, so I'm definitely going to be watching that because I love Bebop. I've seen it too many times. But yeah, I'm really excited now because I love Bebop. But yeah, every night me and my dog watch it. If you haven't seen Bebop, I highly recommend it. I think it's easily digestible for anyone that's not normally into stuff like that. But yeah,
definitely kind of a Western anime to a certain extent. It just feels, it feels like it's catered to the American audience.
Yeah, definitely. It's good. It's good. It's almost like an old Western movie. But yeah, and then on Friday, instead of working, I did a game show battle room. Have you ever heard of those?
Can't say I have. What's that red spot on my shirt?
Red spot. Oh, that's just I think a pixel on the camera going out.
I'm like, what the hell is that? Like, is there a sniper staring at me or something?
No. But yeah, game show battle room. So me and some coworkers went to this place where it's like they put you in teams in like a game show scenario, and you go through different game shows like Family Feud and Wheel of Fortune, The Price is Right, and stuff like that, and you play all these different games, and there's like no prize. but it's still kind of fun to
I,
do like Plinko and Wheel of Fortune and stuff. Like,
I just think of two skits. I think of the SNL skit with Chris Farley and the Japanese game show hosted by Mike Myers. And then I think of Who Poop Rast
who
from
poop rats?
from Robot Chicken.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was kind of weird doing it with a lot of the coworkers that I was with weren't like people I had known very much, so it was kind of like awkward at first. But yeah, we had a lot of fun. I definitely recommend it if you have one in your area. Anyway, so
Yeah, I'd be too tempted to pull a full Kool-Aid man in an escape room. So yeah, I think this might be more my speed. So
yeah, it was cool. Um, so yeah, that was what I've been up to. Um, anyway, it was on to Street Fighter. It was a little tough to find info like on the development of the original Street Fighter. And it was a lot easier to get info on Street Fighter 2, like the development of, but and I suppose that's more fitting for this movie because they kind of came out around the same time. But I didn't do a whole lot of research on 2 and I did most of it on 1, so bear with me here. So Street Fighter came out in 1987. It was designed by Takashi Nishiyama. Is that how you say it? And Hiroshi Matsumoto. Um, so this game was one with a lot of firsts. So it was like a two-player arcade fighter. So you could play as Ryu or Ken. Those were the only two options. And the catch was that you had special moves, and so they programmed all these special moves into the game, but didn't tell anyone about them. Um, so it was kind of just like a secret to everyone, and they were really complicated to pull off. So people were like really messing with the controls, trying to find all the secret moves, and the three special moves that you could do in the game were the Hadoken, the Shurioken, and the Tatsu. So I mean obviously those have carried over to all the new games, but it was really meant to be a two-player game to fight each other, but then the winner would go on to fight like the CPU and do the boss fights and stuff like that. So um yeah, one of the creators, Takashi, he came up with the game after working on like other beat 'em up games like Kung Fu Master, which is one that's pretty iconic, I guess, for the 80s. But they had like a lot of boss fights, and so he was like, I want to make a game of all boss fights. So that's how the first Street Fighter came along, and it had like two versions in the arcade, like one with two buttons, one with six, or something like that. The six button one did really well, and it kind of dominated arcades for a little bit, but like ultimately the Street Fighter 2 cabinets like blew that out of the water. Um, in terms of Street Fighter 2, I guess you could say like the first one was kind of a flop. Um, but yeah, so obviously it it did really well. The games were definitely inspired by Bruce Lee and what's that movie, The Game of Death from 1972.
well, that knocked and the Octagon, but yeah, no, I can
Yeah, a lot of Bruce Lee stuff. And after the success of Kung Fu Master, Takashi was hired by Capcom and then developed Street Fighter. So let's see, he did a bunch of stuff, but none of it really caught on. Like he did Karate Champ and gosh, what else? Jin and just some like other Capcom games, but yeah, none of them really blew up like Street Fighter.
Only the Japanese would make a video game about a condom. Or wrong kind of Trojan.
The wrong kind of trouble.
I mean, okay, seriously, who could not hear that title and not imagine it's like Centipede or Snake with a combo? But every time it picks up a thing, instead of actually getting longer, it gets wider on the head. So,
God. um, yeah. God, now I can't stop picturing it. Jeez.
you're welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Elmer. So yeah, the designers at Capcom took a lot of inspiration from Bruce Lee, as well as like Enter the Dragon. Yeah, that was definitely another influence. Um, so similar to Enter the Dragon, it centered around an international fighting tournament, with each character having a unique combination of ethnicity, nationality, and fighting style. Let's see. We already talked about the arcade. My notes are a little out of order here. Um, so yeah, Capcom also did Final Fight afterward. It began development as a sequel called Street Fighter '89. And according to developers, they were planning to have Ryu and Ken in Final Fight. And it was designed by the same guy, Takashi, but it just kind of ended up becoming a spiritual successor instead of like a direct successor. And I think that was kind of the right the right idea because after Street Fighter 2, they kind of started focusing on combos, which it's kind of funny. The whole invention of like the combo system was basically just a bug. Um, they were like playing and testing it and kind of like wondering how they could get like more than one hit within like the certain amount of time because they thought it was impossible. And it ended up happening if they timed things just right. And instead of fixing the bug, they just said, "Oh, let's leave it in. And that'll be the combo." And now it's kind of like built into every game, so that's pretty cool.
Combo Breaker, aka the thing invented for Killer Instinct to go, haha, we got a one up on that Street Fighter.
Yeah, let's see. So Street Fighter has had a lot of influence, obviously. Um, like Fatal Fury and also influenced Makoto Yukita as a lead designer of Sega's hack and slash beat 'em up Golden Axe. Oh, I can see that. I can also see Golden Axe being
Also,
associated with
Makita
it.
there, he was also the artist on a series that was very popular in Japan called Doom Megalopolis, which the inspiration, the main kind of villain in that, looks exactly like the Japanese character Vega, aka here in the West known as M. Bison. So I can easily see how that gets carried over.
Yeah, so like have you played the original Street Fighter?
The
Or like
first
any
one,
Street Fighter, I guess.
I've played a tiny bit of the first Street Fighter before. It it doesn't control well at all. The graphics are really really not great. I mean, it's like the original Ninja Gaiden level for the
Are you talking about
NES.
like on the NES?
On the NES, yeah.
Oh, yeah, NES port is bad. I mean, it was kind of
I
ported to everything.
yeah. So no, I have played the original one. It was fun, but no, I will say, and we were talking about this earlier. Apparently, going into this, for once, I know more about the game than you do, which kind of shocks me to a certain
Yeah,
extent.
it's so. I have a bit of a sad confession. Um, I am not really a fighting game fan, and I'm sorry to anyone who is. I could just never really get into them. I did play a lot of like Marvel versus Capcom and like Smash Brothers and all that stuff, but I'm just not good at fighting games, so it's nothing I ever really did.
And then I kind of grew up on a combination of the original Street Fighter 2, Mortal Kombat, King of Fighters, Bloody Roar, and then Night Stalkers and stuff like that. So I have that in my back pocket in a way where I can just say that I'm just like, oh yeah, no, I remember that era where it's just quick button mashing, back and forth, combo breaker and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I was excited for when we're like, shit, we got to talk about video games. We're like, oh, Street Fighter, Street Fighter.
Yeah, as not being a fighting game fan, I did play Street Fighter 4 for a while because I don't know if anyone else remembers when the Nintendo 3DS first came out, you could only get like 5 different games for it. Street Fighter 4 being one of them. So I did play that a little bit on the 3DS, but then nobody else I knew had a 3DS, so I couldn't play with anyone. They hadn't launched the online feature yet.
Now, for everybody to do the math, keep this in mind. Street Fighter, 1987. Street Fighter 2, early 90s, around, what was it, 93?
I can't remember.
Street Fighter 3, I want to say, was the late 90s, early 2000s, which was still 2D graphics. Street Fighter 4 was mid 2000s, and finally they went, oh yeah, we can go to actual 3-dimensional graphics here. What's the worst that could happen?
Street Fighter 4, they had so many different versions. I mean, almost as many as Street Fighter 2, maybe even more. But those are just 2 games that just got re-released. I mean, I think nothing can really touch Skyrim levels of re-releases, but
GTA 5, but yeah, I was gonna make the same joke, actually. I was gonna say, just all of a sudden, just pathetic, and it's GTA 5 and Skyrim.
But I do remember...
Minecraft.
Oh yeah, Minecraft too. I mean, Minecraft, and there's a couple of games that I own like 8 copies of.
Snake.
Just on different consoles. Yeah, but I do remember playing Marvel vs. Capcom a lot on the Dreamcast when I was growing up. And I always had fun, but only if I was playing with people that were just as bad as me. Because if it's an even match, it's fun, and even if you're a little overpowered, it's fun. But then probably not for the other person. But like once you're just getting wiped over and over, it's just like I don't know. That's when I'm just like, obviously this isn't something I'm good at. So
yeah, there's me and my cousins. I'm like, I'm gonna play as Spider-Man. My cousins are like, yeah, I'm gonna play as Akuma. Boop. And that was the closest thing you get to an actual like god level karate champion beating up a 14-year-old. Stop it,
dude. That's what older cousins do. Like their whole job is to beat you up. Like...
both physically, emotionally, and then also, well, pretty much in
Marvel vs. Capcom.
Fantasy. So,
speaking of games, of Street Fighter games, I feel like I need to mention Street Fighter the movie, the game for the Sega Genesis or the Sega Saturn. So, this game, like, yeah, so it came out for the Sega Saturn, and it's basically just like a stripped down version of Street Fighter 2, but with like 3D models, or not 3D, like
full motion video.
Yeah, the full motion video models of like the actors from the movie.
Basically, it's Mortal Kombat graphics, except instead of Johnny Cage, it actually is Jean-Claude Van Damme, but without the blood and the fatalities. So it's like, why am I playing this?
Well, the real funny thing is the Street Fighter, the movie, the game, has more actual street fighting than the movie. So, yeah, I haven't played that one myself, but I've seen videos of people playing it, and they're just like, yeah, I guess it's like all right for a fighting game, but just like, why does it? It doesn't need to exist.
I've played it twice. It's bad. It's bad.
Yeah, I mean, once I get my Saturn fixed, you can play it if you want to. But I'm not necessarily looking forward to it.
The only way I'll agree for us to do a stream of us doing a one-on-one of that is if we watch if we play Mystic Knights or whatever the hell the genie game is where you're flying around in Sega Saturn.
Oh, Nights into Dreams?
Yes, Nights into Dreams. We play that, talk about it, and then we watch Wishmaster for next Halloween. That's the only way we're doing that.
I'm down to play some Nights. That game is weird, man.
No, it's weird, but it's fun as hell.
Yeah, it was like a very weird take on like a 3D control scheme. It's tough, but once you get used to it.
But at the same time, that game crawled so that way Spyro and Crash Bandicoot could walk.
Definitely.
Yeah, maybe not Crash Bandicoot, but that was actually more of like a 2.5D than it was. Too bad.
Yeah, I don't really have much more info on Street Fighter 2 or Street Fighter. Just like boring like sales stuff.
Well, I mean, do you have anything about Street Fighter Turbo and how that actually sold out compared to the original Street Fighter 2 case?
No, so unfortunately I was kind of cramped on time this week. I didn't get to do as much research as I wanted to. But I did play a little bit of Street Fighter 4 on my 3DS a couple days ago. Got my ass handed to me by the computer because I don't know what I'm doing. So that was a good, like, reassuring. Yep, I'm not good at fighting games.
Please tell me you didn't pick Dan Hibiki. Please tell me you didn't play as Dan Hibiki.
No, I played as Blanca.
The cross between the Incredible Hulk and a troll, though. Perfect!
Yeah, but you got that electricity that I forgot how to use. Anyway, yeah, that's all I got on the game. Do you find anything? Do you find out anything good about the movie?
Oh, Sonny. Oh, tonight is gonna be a beautiful night. So, apparently Capcom, ever since about 1989, once because while the sales weren't great here in the United States, the original Street Fighter was really popular overseas, and a lot more in the European market as well as like the Asian market. So they've been wanting to do a series for a long time. One of the people in there actually was somebody who they played in a bunch of commercials, kind of like how they did like the live action commercials for Resident Evil here and how popular that got. Well, they did the same thing overseas. And so they've been talking for years. We need to make a Mortal Kombat. Saying Mortal Kombat, damn it. They wanted to do an actual Street Fighter movie, and they were prepared to do it. And finally, they were able to get into talks with an actual movie studio to do it. And it turns out someone who was a video game fan that wanted to do it. Oh lordy, with Stephen E. D'Souza, who is most famous probably for being the person who wrote the script for Die Hard, the perennial Christmas classic. I mean, come on. When you think of Christmas movies, how do you not think of Die Hard?
Die Hard is definitely a Christmas movie.
It definitely is. D'Souza also, he kind of cut his teeth in the 1980s working on stuff like The Running Man, Commando with Schwarzenegger, and a bunch of movies like that. Just really balls to the wall action, hardened, just angry characters. Serious, but with a little bit of kind of like a comic edge to it. D'Souza was really in on it. He's like, only I can make this movie, which was kind of his pitch. Which then a combination of Columbia and Universal Pictures, they went, you know what? You're going to get to make this movie, D'Souza. So they gave him $35 million. However, they told him, you're also going to have to work with Capcom, who's never made a movie before. And Capcom came forward and they said, these are our two things. One, this guy who famously played Ryu in the commercials, he has to play Ryu in real life, and he understands no English whatsoever. And also, for the character of Guile, play a square-jawed American Air Force captain. There's only one person that could do it. Jean-Claude Van Damme. Who's about as much of an Air Force captain as he is American. The muscle from Brussels himself. Jean-Claude Van Damme.
And just Jean-Claude Van Damme has to be like the best part of the movie. Like when I was telling my mother that we were doing an episode on Street Fighter with Jean-Claude Van Damme, and she's like, "Ooh, damn!"
So I've been pointing out the entire time as well. I may be a bit of a Jean-Claude fan myself, growing up in that era. Last week, as kind of a minor spoiler hint for this episode, I had on my Hard Target T-shirt, which is definitely one of my favorites of that era. But he was the one thing that Capcom said. Those are the two options that we need. We need Jean-Claude, and then we need this guy to play Ryu. And D'Souza in the studio went, he doesn't understand a goddamn lick of English, so he's going to play a minor character and we're going to dub him. Sadly, that was not Jean-Claude Van Damme. That was the other guy who they did ADR over, who played the character. What was it? General Casada or General Tanaka or something like that?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you.
And they ADR'd over this guy, and somehow that was better than whatever came out of this guy's mouth.
It was so bad.
Which
Oh my
even
God.
then, I'm like, no, it couldn't have been worse than this.
It was like some Twilight Zone shit. Like, not only was the speech not quite right, like lined up with his mouth, but it all like the person actually speaking had a very thick accent. And it's like, this is the best you could do. Like, if it's not gonna match the lips, at least make it sound good. But yeah, it was.
Reminds me of that old PlayStation game. We will win the battle.
Yeah, it was. Oh, interesting to say the least. But it's like every character in the movie pretty much had a very thick accent. And it's like, are you supposed to be telling me right now that Jean-Claude Van Damme is American?
That's the thing. Every character is supposed to play somebody of a certain ethnicity, just to give it a flair of just being all like, oh no, they're not all Johnny Cage, some white dude from, California kind of thing. Here's the problem though. Everybody is not the ethnicity they're supposed to be playing. Well, maybe Chun-Li, that might be the one exception, but Ming-Na Wen actually is Chinese American instead of being actual just Chinese, but at the same time you're going across the border, you're like, oh, E Honda, Samoan. DJ the Jamaican? Nah, man, I was born in Queens. Oh, crap. Ooh, M. Bison, you're supposed to be what, like a British kind of white thing? I'm Puerto Rican. Fuck! Cammy, British, right? Australian. Shit! Which, speaking of which, yeah, that's the weirdest thing about this movie. So, I was saying about there are two things. You need this guy to play Ryu. You need this guy to play Guile. They gave the kibosh on Ryu, but then for Guile, they're like, okay, we'll get Jean-Claude Van Damme. How hard can that be? The $8 million on a $35 million budget, which means that he got paid a little under a quarter of the budget of the movie. And he himself has admitted that he had a $100,000 a week cocaine problem at the time. And apparently would show up to work late and or drunk on a daily basis. If he showed up at all.
My man.
Now, sadly, even worse. So the first two titles before the actual title of the movie of Street Fighter is Jean-Claude Van Damme and the great Raul Julia, a.k.a. Gomez Addams from the Addams Family movies from the 1990s. The great Raul Julia. And they knew he was going to be able to play just a great over-the-top villain with this. And so they said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to get you beefed up a little bit so that way you're ready to play. As you said, just with how big of a chin he had on him and stuff like that. What did you say he looked like?
He looks like Robbie Rotten from Lazy Town.
This is the part I'm telling you, you're going to feel like an asshole now.
Uh-oh.
It wasn't until about 2 weeks into production that he admitted to the producers that he had stomach cancer and was going in for cancer treatment at the time.
Oh.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, so it's a sad thing. Raul Julia, who's a complete professional in everything he did, the main reason he took the role is because his kids were big fans of the game.
Yeah.
And when they heard that he was trying out for the movie, he thought to himself, hey, if anything's going to happen to me, at least my kids will know this, I did this for them pretty much. So he flat out said he did this movie for his kids. He went through treatment, and it was actually about halfway through production that he went into remission, actually, for stomach cancer. Mm-hmm. So he was able to live about another year after this movie came out. He got into shape. So actually his fighting sequences, while, he didn't look quite as good as he could have, in terms of, because he was a beefier guy in real life. Mm-hmm. At the same time, though, he was able to look enough like M. Bison, and he was able to play that character with so much gusto and charisma and just so much just cartoon chewing scenery that even though he did die right before the movie got released, which it did actually, it's posthumously dedicated to him and stuff like that, he was able to say that I'm proud to know that I have a movie that will carry on my legacy for my kids, which is quite sweet.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah. So, I guess the actual movie, man, the plot, this seems like one of those movies where to the writers, they have this whole plot worked out and it makes perfect sense to them, but it doesn't come out that way. It's
part of the production actually was Stephen A. D'Souza, anytime he found himself in a situation where either Van Damme was too high to come out of his trailer, They were afraid Myanmar was about to invade the country, or Cambodia, where they were in at the time. Afraid they were going to invade because of their all their fake military equipment they had on set there, or the monsoon that was going on at the time basically delayed production entirely and made them stay indoors while it's torrential raining. What he would do is anytime that would happen, as a joke, he would pull the old John Huston famous thing where he would just reach in the script and rip pages out and go, "We don't need them anyway." And actually, it wasn't until the editing phase he realized, "Oh shit, we actually did need some of those."
That makes so much sense. That makes so much sense.
Yeah, apparently they filmed half this movie on a soundstage in Toronto to save some money.
Yeah, because the beginning of the movie, it's just military shit happening. And everyone's super into their acting and they know what's going on, but none of it makes any goddamn sense at all.
As I was telling Levy here, do you know what this movie contains a whole lot of? Parables and allusions to the Bosnian conflict, the atrocities committed in Darfur and Rwanda and Cambodia at the time. So if anything, this movie is timely in that it helps to hit that international sweet spot of knowing what it's like to actually have the UN called in. You know what this movie doesn't have a fucking lot of?
Street fighting.
As well as Hadokens.
Yeah, none of that.
No helicopter kicks.
And, there is... No, that's from Upside Down. Never mind.
And also, the other thing it doesn't have is that... What is it? Tacho Marita Hara?
The Tatsu?
Tatsu Marita Hara. Thank you very much. Diarrhea Kickfoot, I think is what they call it. It's the rough translation.
Yeah, it was just whatever they were going for, they didn't get it. It's how that movie was. Yeah, eventually when this plot starts making sense, it's after everyone's been captured by M. Bison, and it's right towards the end of the movie when things start happening and making sense, and that's just too late for me, man.
Wait. You're telling me this movie has to start making sense in the last 20 minutes? What is this, a Twilight Zone episode? Come on, man.
Yeah, but Guile and M. Bison end up getting in a fight, but everyone's there somehow. E-Honda, everyone. Chun-Li.
That was the funny thing. Originally,
Blanca,
for the script, D'Souza said, "Oh, I can easily get the 5 main characters of the game into this movie, and it will make comprehensive sense." And then Capcom went, "Only 5?" They stuck 12 characters in this movie, and somehow you're supposed to remember all of them.
And when Blanca gets revealed, it's just it felt so cheap. The way they even did Blanca's special effects and makeup and everything. It's is this a shitty caveman commercial from the 80s or something? What is happening? It was there were very few parts of the movie that I enjoyed. And I enjoyed them because I was laughing at the movie.
Oh, every time when M. Bison is levitating and make a little
yeah, I almost forgot.
You were dying.
So in the final fight, M. Bison does this thing
he does this levitation trick he does in the game.
Yeah, it's electromagnetism, whatever. Same things the bullet train uses. And so he goes, "I can levitate too." And he starts flying around the fighting arena. Making jet sounds. So he takes off and goes and flies towards Jean-Claude Van Damme. Oh man, I laughed so hard.
And here I'm telling Levy, I'm like, no, if anything, we need to recut this where he's making the Jetson noises flying.
Little Jetson spaceship sounds. Yeah, that'd be. I mean, if I have enough time tonight, I might just edit that time. Yeah, so that part of the movie, hilarious. And then honestly, I can't even really remember how it ends. What they kill him, and they're all happy, and then
his 2 henchmen that aren't Sagat and not Vega. Is it DJ?
Oh yeah, DJ and
yep. Joanna Man, Miguel Nunez Jr. and Andrew Benarski as Zangief who has the two greatest lines. Well, I'd say a few of the greatest lines in this movie. Change the channel, and you get paid.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The Texas Chainsaw remakes, Andrew Bonarski, Leatherface plays Zangief in this. You're like, damn, that's a big ass dude. But yeah, once they do tailcoat or turn tailcoat on M. Bison, that's when you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, there was like this whole thing where they're like, wait, M. Bison's a bad guy? Like, why did you work for him? He's like, because he paid me a lot of cash. Then Zangief's like, you got paid? And it's like, it was really, I mean, that's one for the kids, right?
Oh yeah.
Um,
The truck full of explosives coming down towards the tent they're standing in, and they're watching it on TV, and Zangief just yells, "Change the channel!" As it's getting closer.
yeah, that was good. Yeah, and then let's see how else did the movie end? Then Guile hits on Chun-Li and the movie ends.
As they all jump in the end on that end, and they do the freeze frame of their actual fighting, their winning pose.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of Chun-Li, bringing her up, so Chun-Li in this movie is played by the great Ming-Na Wen, who people of our generation would know as the gal who did the voice of Mulan in Disney's Mulan and everything subsequent after that. She went on to do Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for Marvel, where she plays kind of like the older head agent of kind of their little crew. And now she's on The Mandalorian and soon to be on the Book of Fett, or the Book of Boba Fett. And it's like she's had a complete career renaissance. She's become a complete badass. And I'd completely forgotten that she played Chun-Li in this movie, so now it makes my masturbation to her as Mulan feel just a little less creepy.
Yeah, she was like, I mean, not the only good actor in the movie, but like one of the 4 good actors in the movie.
Which one of them was not Kylie Minogue, aka Australian Britney Spears, who had her theatrical film debut with this. She was found on a People magazine by Stephen S. D'Souza as he was flying to Thailand to shoot the sequences for this. And then he decided, you know what? This gal would be great for Cammy. Perfect. And then Jean-Claude Van Damme later admitted that, yes, pretty much. On set, all I did the entire time was drink heavily, do cocaine, be in my presidential suite where I worked out, and had an affair with Kylie Minogue.
I mean, good for him, though, I guess. Like, God, this movie just... Man, we're doing a better movie next time.
So he's being really somber and sad about it, and really kind of putting it down. I'm glad I finally got to rewatch this movie. I probably haven't seen it in 10 years, and before that was probably 10 years before that. I kind of grew up watching this movie with my cousins, as well as with some other friends of mine in the neighborhood. I jokingly like to refer to this movie as being part of the trifecta that were the 3 movies of that era, kind of all within the same camp. There were the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie, Jingle All the Way, and this one in terms of overproduced, self-serious action kids movies. And you know what? This is just, I think it's a fine enough hangout movie to be able to kick back.
Are you forgetting about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Vanilla Ice?
Ninja Turtles 2 was just slightly before this. I'd call that more of an 80s movie than I would a 90s movie.
Okay, I'll take it.
Because otherwise, no, I'd also say to a lesser end, like after those 3, then it goes to Ninja Turtles 3, Turtles in Time. And then right after that, then it's Warriors of Virtue. But yeah, no, it's kind of within that same wheelhouse in a way.
Yeah, it like I thought I had seen this movie before, but I haven't. And if I did, I completely blocked it out of my memory. So,
the look on his face when Raul Julia started floating and shooting electricity out of his fingers. I think the only way he would have looked more shocked and surprised if I would have started tasing him with a stun gun on the couch.
Shoots lightning out his hands, dude. Yeah, no, but like I've seen most of the movies that we're gonna be watching. It just so happens these 2 in a row here I have not seen. And Silent Hill was a lot better. Even though I said Silent Hill was a flop, this has changed my perspective a little bit about the movies we're watching here. So
And I've told him, I flat out told him at this point, I'm like, oh no, you don't like these two? I'm like, you do realize these two are like in the top tier echelon of all video game movie adaptations, right? Right. These are considered like the elder statesmen of movie adaptation.
So it wasn't bad. There were parts I liked. Like I said earlier, it was the parts I liked were when I was making fun of it. So um I don't know. I'm gonna rate this movie a flop. Um I don't want to watch it again, but you could probably make me watch it again for sure.
I'm definitely gonna call it a bop, and I'm gonna definitely look at you right now and go, you do realize we have to do a Legend of Chun-Li at some point, right?
Yeah, I guess. I guess maybe
Oh.
that could be a bonus episode.
In the one where you're gonna pay me extra money to watch it, bonus episode.
Hey man, since when do you think that podcast is making money? I can pay you all of a sudden.
Paid?
God, I set myself up for that one.
Yeah, I will never forget walking through the spoiler alert on where we grew up. I'll never forget walking around the East Bethel Theater and seeing in the back corner by the door to the outside that's not like to the main lobby there. I'll never forget that. At the door in the north end, walking by there and just seeing Tuck back in the corner, hiding out of sight of everybody. I'll never forget our good friend on the show here, Cool Cat, going, oh, look! The next Street Fighter movie! And he was actually excited. And we're just like, oh boy.
Oh no. Yeah, Cool Cat, if you're here, we love you. That's for sure.
Me too.
Oh, oh, we got a bot in chat. That's fun. Okay, well, yeah, it was a flop for me. Bob for Barry?
I call it Bob.
Maybe nostalgia Bob.
Nostalgia. Like I said, I kind of grew up with this movie, so I'm not the best person to say about that. And I kind of I enjoyed it for the exact same reasons I enjoy the Goonies. Let's put it that way. So no, we'll call it that. This is like the late clove cigarette version of the Goonies.
Okay, well that makes sense, Elmer. All right, so we're gonna be ending the podcast then. So if you want to stick around, we're going to be doing a Q&A afterwards. But if you want us to answer any questions on the podcast, if you're an audio listener, you can email us at thegamelinkpod@gmail.com. We also have a Patreon where you can get access to the Q&As and subscribe and support us and get your name read out loud and get your questions answered, whatever. And that's patreon.com/gamelink. So, anything else you want to say, Elmer, before we do the Q&A here?
Yeah, pretty much just give us a couple more weeks, guys. We'll finally get those OnlyFans pages up so that way we can really help to support the show. And depending upon how much you pay us, I might be able to help support Lebby here, and Lebby will be definitely doing some supporting on me. And yeah, we'll definitely make that worth bang for the buck. So thank you guys once again.
Yeah, thank you. Stick around. We'll do the Q&A. Bye, everyone.
Have a good week. Stay safe. Stay sexy.